We could do a cheer. Give me a D. Give me an O. Give me a G. What's that spell?
Dog.
Dog. May Daily. Hello and welcome to the May Daily Podcast. I'm John Michael Thomas.
And I am Pierre Hegeman.
May Daily covers our favorite online stories from tech to social media.
Our expert thoughts and opinions about information security, risk management, website design and development,
and other random stories from across the internet. This week's episode of the May Daily Podcast is made possible by Cinemechanics, the premier camera and lens rental house in Minnesota. When you're shooting your next film, commercial, or popular streaming TV series, Cinemechanics will ensure your project stays next level. And come on, shoot in Minnesota and take care of the tax incentives.
There you go. And also
Yes.
Made Daily version 5, which is the all-in-one secure website builder with built-in data collection tools, secure customer portals, and it helps you protect your customers against phishing attacks.
It certainly does. And one of our way back internet favorites, rainymood.com.
We could use a little rainy mood here in Minnesota. It's quite dry.
It is. All right. So we're going to go over, we got to talk about DOGE.
More
You can't
Doge.
talk about security risks and data breaches without talking about this story that was, we're looking at the one from the Huffington Post, but it was on multiple news outlets. DOGE posts classified data on its new website. Oh boy.
I mean, and it's so much worse than that. I mean, yes, they posted classified. They did the same thing DeepSeek did a few weeks ago. They left a database wide open so anybody could make updates and like read the data from their website. It was so stupid.
So let's talk about, let's go through what they posted. So they posted classified information about the size and staff of the U.S. intelligence agency. And people were like, well, how did these programmers get this? And I get it. This was a attempt, or is still an attempt, to root out waste, fraud, and abuse from the U.S. government. It's big buzzwordy thing right now, and it's a very, very top concern of half of America, that they want to get rid of all this waste and our tax dollars and all that. Yes, we can get rid of waste. However, you also should hopefully entrust that the people doing it aren't putting other things at risk. And that's my concern, and my criticism will be slow down, take your time, do your due diligence. But no, they're just like going full on, and stuff like this happens, which is quite laughable, actually. I think very funny,
And
to our detriment.
And saying that, I mean, not to go off the rails here. We're going to talk about risk management, but I feel like if you're going to talk about reducing waste, you might need to start looking at the places in the government where we know there is waste already, but there doesn't seem to be any evidence of that. Anyway, yeah, databases. It's that website's not great. I mean, I feel like
It was a stood up Cloudflare thing that they stood up on their own, and it's outside of the government. It's not like, I don't know enough about what the government requirements are, but I can have a pretty good hunch those protocols were not followed in this case.
I mean, AWS has a separate cloud environment specifically for government use, which gives a small indication as to, there are strict requirements around government IT systems.
And DOGE is, just to be fair, saying they did not share any classified information. This is not what happened. Stop the fear mongering is what they're saying. But again, okay, sure, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But do you, like, what are we supposed to believe? And why why are you doing it in such a haphazard way? I mean, it's just like,
Well, and the other thing is you can clearly see that that information was sensitive. So whether or not it's classified is a legal question, but it's definitely sensitive information. It shouldn't have been made public. And saying no, don't trust your eyes, trust what we tell you is not. I mean, it doesn't engender trust
right,
in the process at
right.
all.
And then there's on that same thread about trust, there's questions like who's in charge of Doge, and now they're saying it's not Musk, it's this other person. I forget her name. We could look that up, but Amy Johnson or something like that. And it's like, okay, I don't think anybody is in the wrong for asking, but then the press secretary is making it be it's this big ordeal. What's everybody need to know? We have a right to know.
Right.
We have a right to know. And if you're fumbling the football and you're bumbling along, you are going to get questioned.
Right.
It's not
I
like
mean,
this. It's not. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to say that this was the. If they say that this was the most streamlined process, I'd have to question like what they're actually thinking. But this is quite silly and alarming in
well,
some regard.
right, and we do have a right to know because there's that whole I don't know, maybe we've forgotten there's the of the people, by the people, and for the people part
Yeah.
in the Constitution.
I think it just doesn't also help the argument that, okay, their argument is, hey, we're going to root out fraud, waste, and abuse in the government. Okay, well, you're not providing confidence in people when we're getting all this like barrage of stuff, and it all just kind of feel like it's really haphazard. And now it's just totally blurry. We don't know what to believe. And then there's this article from Wired, which is out here saying the takeover is worse than we even think.
When we're talking about the we brought up risk management a couple of
Yeah,
times. When we're
that's
talking
what I was going
about
back to.
yeah, when we're talking about risk management and like when you're shutting down like the nuclear security, the team that secures our nuclear arsenal. You're laying them off, and then I mean, later there's that whole thing where they were trying to rehire them back. But like, this is a problem, right? Then this is becoming a systematic issue, right? So there was the nuclear arsenal security team. There was the avian flu team doing research on bird flu. There was the Ebola research
Right.
team. When you're getting rid of critical public health, even national security staff without any like there's no reason to lay those people off. Clearly that's not where the fraud, waste, and abuse in the government is. So we start to question what is the purpose, right? And who is driving that? Like it's creating risk, it's creating um and really destroying the trust in like we talked about before in this whole process.
Yeah. And there's some suspicions that nobody's confirmed this, that part of how they're making these determinations is running it through large language model AI to decide, where to cut, where not to cut. I don't know. I haven't confirmed that that's actually happening. Seems kind of like if you ran a AI company, it seems like a logical thing. I don't know for sure. Um, but I mean, when we're talking about risk management, like let's just keep it really simple. We build websites. We're going to build a website. Part of our process of building a website is making sure the code is accurate, making sure that it's performing properly, it doesn't have holes so people can hack it, and then
Well,
also it gets into, go ahead.
yeah, before that though, we're classifying data, right? We're
Right.
identifying and classifying data. We're finding what's sensitive, what's important, what's critical, and it's not just security, right? There's content, right? There's a hierarchy of content. What's the most important point
Yeah.
to this business's story, right? We have to, there's, when we talk about building websites, the build is like the easiest part, right? The
Right.
hard part is identifying, tracking down, and classifying data. And that can take a really long time. So when you see somebody coming in to the United States government and starting to make these massive changes very, very quickly, it it's hard to believe that they have taken the time to identify the sensitive data, identify the critical systems.
Right. Right.
Right.
Right. Or was the person who's doing it, if it's a, sure, you got a bunch of like young, you know, coders, young engineers. We celebrate young engineers. There's a lot of talented kids that know how to code stuff, but are they have they been trained in identifying classified information? We've run into situations where we've worked on projects with, you know, young teams coding up sites, and then they go live, and then the whole thing comes crashing down because they hadn't walked through the experience of setting up load balancing properly, or CDNs, or all of the infrastructure that's required to keep the site up from a crash. There's lots of levels of things,
And
and
more
I think,
and
yeah,
fundamentally too, there's not just have they been trained in information security, but there is the open question of, is this person, or are they not, a cyber criminal, right? I think that should be definitively established before someone gets employed in the government, right? Because there are a lot of questions about so-called big balls, right? And what did he do before DOGE, right? He has alleged ties to, Russian cybercrime. I
alleged.
alleged, that's what I said, alleged.
Yeah,
I'm not
we don't
making
know.
any
Yeah.
assertions. I am just saying I think that we should find out, right? Run a background check. I mean, I don't know if that's been done already,
and
but
and
yeah.
and yeah, and the article in Wired goes to say it's worse than you think, in the same way your brain breaks a little when you try to picture how deep the ocean is. It's worse than you think, because by the time the court gets up to the damage that's already been done, it's worse than you think, because people running our government seem to have no higher mission than to watch it burn.
Right.
And that's a little bit out there, scary. This is Brian Barrett, it's the writer on this. But again, when we're working on things and we're trying to protect our clients, we're trying to think about their customers and their data, and if they need HIPAA compliant environments,
Right.
or if they need a database to be encrypted. And it just seems like, and I think this is kind of, you could throw a pin and you probably get people saying something just isn't feeling right
Yeah.
with all of this. And again, from our point of view, like we talked about before in the last podcast, we talked about DOGE. It's so antithetical to how you'd protect data,
Yeah.
that it's just like, you
Well,
just want to eat a big bowl of ice cream.
but another thing that I keep coming back to is, when DOGE is gutting the Transport Security Agency, or when DOGE is gutting the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau because X wants to become a finance app, that is an inherent conflict of
I see.
interest, right? And I think that that's a major problem, right? Just from a security standpoint, just as judges should recuse themselves when the a case comes up where they have a financial interest, or theoretically,
Mm-hmm.
senators are supposed to recuse themselves um, from issues that they have a financial interest in, or they have to divest, right? It
I think that's what we're seeing, though, is that there's half the country saying that ship's over, that ship sailed. The conflict of interest doesn't matter anymore. It's all about doing what I want, what I need to further myself. And so to circle back on that, the backlash will be huge at some point. And I think if you're a small business, you really need to start thinking about protecting your customers. You need to like be more concerned about customer loyalty, if you're gonna survive. I mean, and we were seeing that with certain retail stores changing policies, and now people are boycotting them. And it may be temporary, but there's others that have done a good job of maintaining that loyalty, and they're seeing their brand grow
Yeah, I
from
think
that.
there's just a question of good faith, right? When we're working for clients, we we have to act in good faith, and our clients have to trust that we're operating in good faith. And um, when you
Yeah,
see obvious conflicts of interest that are being ignored or being exploited, it's hard to believe that that they're operating in good faith,
yeah,
which again it's a risk problem, right? The
yeah,
risk that they're cutting things for their own interest and not for the benefit of the whole is high, I
right.
think.
And from a security standpoint, risk management is the whole job. That's the whole thing. And and there's other things like we talked about even last podcast, like we don't know what doors were open. We don't know what adversaries now have access to things.
Right.
They also sent out that thing to have everybody email that HR email. Well, uh, that can be reverse engineered. People can find out the emails now of all of the government, and what would somebody do with that information? Well,
Well,
they
reverse
can map
engineered,
a yeah,
that's kind of a vague term, but I mean it
yeah,
certainly becomes a, a high value target for attack, right? Because that single email address now contains a phishing database, for a
right,
spear phishing database
right,
for everyone
right,
in the federal government, right?
right.
Except for the agencies that said no, don't do this, which are the ones, NSA, the ones
But
that
I
are,
heard, but
yeah,
I heard, read yesterday that a million people have already responded.
yeah.
A million government employees have already responded. We talk a lot in this podcast about breaches and security breaches and risks and all those things. And I think why we're talking about it here and why we're alarmed about it is we're already seeing this happen all the time. We
Well,
already know that telecoms have been breached. We know that the power grid has been breached. Now, technically, if you're looking at it through a security lens, the government's been breached. It's not there's no like, well, no, it hasn't. Yes, it has. We don't know if that is going to be significant or not, but it is becoming a thing where, like, again, back to lock up your social security number, put a credit freeze on,
yeah,
start protecting yourself.
well,
Don't click
that's
links from text, all the stuff we've been telling people, and understand that um
eh,
for the next probably 10 years,
yeah.
you got to be really really
Eh,
on top of this stuff.
And if you're concerned about what's going on, if you're not concerned, then great, go on, move along. If you are concerned, contact your representatives, right?
Right.
That's things only change when people are loud. Well, speaking about Doge, I mean, my issue with it is I am all for efficiency. I love efficiency as an engineer, as an architect. And as a security person, efficiency is my love language. but um, but the problem is Doge. It's not a department, and it's not the government, and it doesn't seem to be about efficiency. So when the Department of Government Efficiency isn't any of those things, what is it? That is my question. What is it, and and what are they doing, and to whose benefit? Because it's not clear that it's for our benefit.
I don't remember. There are people that say, well, DOGE is this other agency that already exists. They just renamed it, but I can't remember what that
Yeah, it was an
department
IT.
was called.
Yeah,
Yeah.
systems.
And I guess that's part of it too. We don't know everything. We don't know, I think a lot of people generally, just with reason don't understand why we have all of these departments. But again, like
But what gives this department the right to forcibly go into other departments and start not only firing their staff, but like uh, you know,
bec-
infiltrating
bec-
their IT systems?
yeah, because I don't think that, well, it's a lot of politics. And while I think there's people try to have good intentions and really do want to root out waste, fraud, and abuse, this has a very stinky smell of political agenda, unfortunately.
And
Um,
self-interest. I don't see a
yeah,
lot of
and
fraud and
um,
abuse being taken on.
but I would like to know if there is, where is it?
Hmm.
Like line item it all out, list it. But the things that, as we think about risk too, you start to think about what's going to really be the fallout from this 6 months from now, 2 years from now. Are we going to end up in a recession? We just laid off a bunch of federal workers. We know that the housing market in DC has just, like, there's so much inventory now. Like that brings down home prices. So there's a lot of fallout, and I think in all of this sort of political discourse over throughout the country, we got to get to a point where we can actually have these conversations and be um, more collaborative in how to get to end results. It's just always like pitting against each other. I guess my point I was trying to make is everybody's going to have a different point of view. When we look at things and we're looking at protecting things and keeping safe, we're engineering a way to try to set guardrails up to stop things from crashing, making content good so that it's communicating well with the customer. We're just,
Yeah.
we just make digital products. But
I
you'd hope, but we are always trying to think about, we're trying to stay ahead of what's going to come.
yeah.
And I just am, my problem is, I think that we're going to find out that there's going to be a lot of ripple effect from this. And um and I think that people who were probably really for this are going to start to get affected too, and that maybe that's a part of rooting out
Well,
waste, fraud, and abuse. But
yeah, I think the major issue, at least my major issue, and I think a lot of people are seeing this too, is again, I, I don't think anybody's going to say we want waste, fraud, and abuse in the government, right? Everybody is for reducing those things. What I want is for that to be done strategically, to be and thoughtfully, so that we're targeting actual waste, actual fraud, and actual abuse instead of what appears to be happening now, which seems very arbitrary and not really focused at all. Or if it is focused, it's focused on trying to do as much harm as possible in as short a time as possible.
it's focused around, uh some say, a little bit of cover to put forth a new budget that reduces taxes. And in order to offset a tax cut, you got to find where you're going to cut the money.
Yeah,
It's economics 101.
I
I
would
don't
love
know
to
that
have lower taxes, but I also would love to be able to fly an airplane without it crashing, and also to not have bird flu. So,
yeah, yeah.
I would love to have our, you know, national adversaries not be able to access our nuclear arsenal. Those are all things that I would really like to not have happen.
So I think where we were saying last time, are we just alarmists? We probably are, because we are people that have to think critically and dig deep into solving problems and fixing problems and making experiences better for people. So inherently, we're going to be probably more on the side, I'm not sure how that's gonna go. Yeah. But again, some people forge ahead, and hopefully we'll come out of this better. That's the best hope, or as unscathed as possible. But
well,
the pessimist in me is not,
as a technical and a security architect, none of what's happening is I don't like any of it. It's my risk warnings are going through the roof.
Yeah. So, rainy mood, calm, rainy, stormy, all day, every day. Super great. And it's the most popular rain experience on the web, and millions use rainy mood to sleep, study, and relax. Started about 7 years ago, and what's also cool is you can hook in your favorite YouTube channel. So if you want to listen to your rainy mood with a little lo-fi hip-hop beats to relax and study to, you can get that going. Mix in a little rainy mood and just calm down, which you may need to calm down from all of this DOGE stuff. Your heart races. Just bring it back. Isn't that rain nice, Pierre? Isn't that just calm?
It's very nice.
Calm you down, when you need to get into a groove and get your work done, or want to take a walk in the rain. You can listen to the rain while you're walking.
I prefer electronica, but rain's good too.
You could take the rain and you can add in electronica. You should try it. It's a cocktail of sound that you will love.
Let's run it through a mirror and see what they do.
Ooh, yeah. That could be like the best experience ever. Just put on some chill phrase playlists at 30 seconds a pop and just let the rain run with it. Well, thanks for joining us today. If you want to check out this story or the other topics we've covered, head over to madedaily.com/blog. And if you have a story you'd like to share or a site you'd like to review, please leave a comment.
And do not forget to subscribe.
Until next time,
stay secure.
Made Daily.